everyone. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. I'm Nancy Blackwood, and president of the University Hill Neighborhood Association Executive Committee for the last 7 years. Whoop. For the last 7 years.
Come stand by.
I have been, yeah. I just didn't want to have my back. That's okay. So I'm the president of the university. Oh, okay, both. President of the University Hill Neighborhood Association for the last 7 years, and I've been on the Hill now for almost 50 years. And I wanted to welcome all of you neighbors and the candidates to our 2023 candidate forum. We have a long history of dating back to the 70s in terms of our involvement and our action, all of our active work that we've done. And I just wanted to ask you to take a really quick look at around you. This is a really special building, a really special sanctuary designed by Charles Hartling, and one of our preeminent architects. So take a minute to look around and appreciate the architecture. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to, I'm handing it off to Mark, who's going to introduce everyone. Is that okay?
All right. My name is Mark Wallach. I'm a member of the Boulder City Council, and I'm your Master of Ceremonies tonight. Before we get into the questions that I'm going to be asking of the various candidates, we're going to hear a brief statement about Safe Zones for Kids, which is an initiative that many of us support, and I wanted to give them a quick opportunity to inform you as to what's going on and tell you a little bit about it.
Okay. Should I stand there, or do you want me to stand there? Yes. Yes. Okay. Okay. Okay.
Okay. Hi, my name is Daphne Rubin, and can everybody hear me? Okay. I am a member of the organizing committee for Safe Zones for Kids. It's ballot item 302 on your ballots. And Safe Zones for Kids asks the city to prioritize the removal of prohibited items, including tents and propane tanks and items that might be found in tents, like illicit drugs, weapons, and used needles, from around schools and pathways that students use first. So if you vote no on 302, the city will still do the work of removing prohibited items, just not near where the kids are first. So that's all it does. It's a one-sentence addendum. It also includes the words subject to prioritized removal. Subject to prioritized removal are some important words because it's basically letting the city make decisions about how resources are used best. So in other words, it's not that the day after the election, if this passes, every single sidewalk and multi-use path and school instantly will have a cleanup crew right around it. Rather, it means that the city will use best practices, risk assessment, and then determine, based on proximity to schools and pathways that students are using, whether or what gets moved first. That's it.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. No. Let me first explain how we're going to do it tonight. We're going to have 2-minute introductions from each of our candidates, telling you a little bit about themselves and what they stand for. Then we'll have a series of questions, 2-minute answers from each of our candidates. Time permitting, we may be able to take some questions from the audience, but it's time permitting. We have a few things to get through. So, we can start with Tina. Go ahead.
Okay, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
All right. What? Oh, right. I know. Has problem remembering directions. Vote no on Tina. Thank you so much for organizing us and inviting me into your neighborhood. It's always great to be up at University Hill. I have a lot of friends up here. I was in a book club up over on the west side of 9th, and I also play a lot of mahjong at 6th and College is my mahjong place. So my name is Tina Marquis. I'm running for Boulder City Council, and I've been involved in the community for a long time. I've lived here for 21 years, and I got involved in local government when my kids were at Foothill Elementary, and I joined the School Accountability Committee. From there, I joined the District Accountability Committee and got a deeper view on the 56 different schools managed by the school district. Then I was elected to school board in 2013. The same year I was elected to the Conference of World Affairs first board, when, if some of you recall, there was some transition with the Conference of World Affairs. I was on the inaugural board for that organization as well. I served on school board for 8 years, including during the pandemic. I was president. That was a really tough time and really choppy waters to navigate as we focused pretty solely on getting kids back into school. So now I'm running for city council, and I have 3 main concerns that inspired me to go back into what can sometimes be a tough position and an underpaid job in local governance. The first is meeting our climate action goals that we set in 2019. The second is looking hard at how do we get more affordable housing in our community, particularly for people that we now call essential workers, people that perform medical services, teachers, early childhood care educators, and all that. And then the last is about safe and public spaces while compassionately, relentlessly working on the humanitarian crisis that we see every day in the form of homelessness. So it's just so important that we care for our neighbors. What I hear consistently is just how much people care and want both. So thank you so much, and consider voting for me for Boulder City Council.
Here's my key. Everybody who loves Mark, raise your hand. Oh, right. My name is Tara Weiner, and I am on City Council, and I'm running for re-election. I live at 15th and Columbine, and for some reason got really confused and just walked into a fraternity house, which did not look like the right place. That was like I was on one block that way. And I have 3 daughters, 3 sons-in-law, and 3 granddaughters. And it's been a pleasure, it's so much fun to be on City Council with Bob and Mark. You all probably watched the meeting where we lost to the Bedrooms Are for People kerfuffle, which is a word I use a lot right now. And I feel your love and support. So I just want to thank you guys for always being there for us. And when we call and say, you guys got to write right now, you got to call, you got to show up at public hearings or whatever, people are there for us. And I can't even tell you what it's like to feel like you have our backs. Am I right? Yeah. Okay. So now what I've been doing for 2 years is working pretty hard on safety in public spaces. A lot of people are going to talk about things on a big level, but as far as the feet on the ground, bike underpasses, Jenny, am I right? And safety in our bike underpasses and on our multi-use paths is very important to me. Safety at the creek, not having people camping at the creek. And so for that reason, we need to actually solve the problems of the homelessness by adding a day center, which is going to be really important, as well as transitional housing with wraparound services. So I am going to tell you that I love these people so much, and this is one of our last forums, yay, because I'm hungry, never get to eat anymore. But I'm just delighted to introduce you to everybody else here, and Jenny is going to take it.
Hello, everybody. I am Jenny Robbins. I have lived in Boulder for 7 years. I live up in Gun Barrel. I have 2 kids who are 11 and 13. They are part of the BVSD public school system. My professional background is in land use and zoning and contract negotiation. Personally, I call myself a chronic volunteer. I've been working with nonprofit organizations since I was in my late teens, doing all I can to help people in need. My latest chronic volunteer is a 6-year stint with the Girl Scouts. I've shepherded 28 girls from kindergarten all the way now into 8th grade here in Boulder, and they are wonderful girls. And it's gotten me very passionate about making sure that youth have opportunities. We need happy, healthy, hopeful youth in order to have happy, healthy, hopeful adults. I'm going to tell a quick story that I don't normally tell, but it's about Tara. Tara got me involved in this process of politics here in Boulder. And I wanted to say that today we were on a bike tour of Boulder Housing Partners affordable housing properties, which was quite a fabulous tour. We got to see a lot of different areas where people are really, truly trying to help our essential workers and get them into living in Boulder. In the process of that bike tour, we were crossing under an underpass down by Goose Creek, and there was a man in the underpass having a mental health crisis, and he was screaming profanities, and he was yelling, and he was trying not to let people through. And we got through the underpass, and as we came through the other side, an elderly gentleman was walking in, and Tara stopped. She said, "Stop." I was right next to her, and so we stopped, and she said, "I can't leave that man." And she turned around, and as she's booking it back into the underpass to make sure he's okay, the man having the mental health crisis shoved the elderly gentleman, and Tara was like, "Stop, you have to stop," and shielded the man and got him out of that underpass safely. Never in my life, in my 25 plus years of voting, have I been prouder to vote for somebody than I am. That was amazing today. I mean, she truly cares for the community. I thought that was amazing. So that's my story for the day. Thank you all very much.
Hi there. My name is Terri Brncic. I moved here. Well, first off, Brncic is a Croatian last name. It's kind of a mess, so I'll answer to everything. I moved here 9 years ago from San Francisco with my husband, Brian, and our 2 sons who are now at Boulder High School. I'm a CFO and a CPA by training and have spent the past 25 years providing financial leadership to startup companies, and I operate a fractional CFO consulting practice here in Boulder. I was inspired to run for council through my involvement on the Safe Zones for Kids ballot initiative, which I joined out of concern for the escalating safety situation around Boulder High School. My youngest son runs track and was actually next to the school when a propane tank exploded, and he was about 45 seconds away from that explosion. So, we were frustrated, and in doing that, basically met with everyone that we could in the city to really understand why these things were happening, how we could get better safety for our kids. And ultimately, what we just found was that there's a lot of siloing and a lot of ideology that is sort of preventing us from making any meaningful changes. So that's really what got me here. I'm concerned, as a longtime San Francisco resident, I'm concerned that Boulder has taken a wrong turn. And we are really putting political ideology above effective solutions. So for me, it's really about getting into the details and chipping away at problems and trying to, break things apart. In order to do that, and by the way, I'm confident that we can do that because Boulder has taken the lead in anything that it sets its mind to. We were the first to do affordable housing, inclusionary housing programs. We have incredibly amazing climate action programs. We really are a leader. These are hard problems, but I have no doubt that we can solve them. We just need leaders that are willing to put the political ideologies aside, unite us around common goals to try to make our community better for everyone. And I think that with my skill set, I can bring that kind of leadership. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Bob Yates. I've served on the Boulder City Council for 8 years, and this year I'm running for mayor. This will be the first time that you all get to choose your own mayor. Up to this point in time, the mayor was appointed here in Boulder, but now you're going to elect the mayor and be honored to serve as the first directly elected mayor. I first ran for city council in 2015, and I distinctly remember the forum for the University Hill Neighborhood Association. It was down in a basement somewhere. It was in the basement of the church. It was the basement of the church. Some of you guys were there. And I was so nervous. I was a first-time candidate. I'd never run for office before. And somebody asked, we were trying to revitalize Hill, but it was 2015. And somebody asked the question at one of these forums for Uni Hill, what are your ideas, candidates, for revitalizing the Hill? And I just blurted out something which didn't come out right. I said, I think on the Hill we need more adult entertainment. And I got elected anyway. So, and of course, what I meant is some of the things that we are seeing now on University Hill. I think the hotels, which I'm very proud of, are going to be a game changer. I think they're going to draw in some more commercial establishments that adults like to use. No strip clubs. I just think that we've worked very hard over the last 8 years to really I don't want to say upgrade the Hill, because the Hill's a wonderful place. I've spent many, many years on the Hill, not living here, but as some of you know, I was the president for many years of the Boulder History Museum, which of course was across the street, and so I spent almost all day, every day here for years. So I'm very intimately familiar with this neighborhood, at least during the daytime. And I think we've made some progress over the last few years around noise ordinance, around weeds and trash. I wish I could say we made progress on occupancy, but that was a bit of a setback. But I think we've made some progress, and that's largely, and I think Tara mentioned this, thanks to you all. Because when there's something that comes up that we need your help on, we reach out to the usual suspects here, and we say, hey, can you get the troops together and send in a bunch of emails? And oftentimes that is helpful for us either to encourage something and stop talking, to encourage something to happen, or stop something bad from happening. And so thank you so much for your advocacy, and we will need you again. Thank you.
Okay, as these are all candidates that I admire and support, you might assume that I'm going to try to give them softball questions for your entertainment. I hope that will be a false assumption. So let's start with the questions and see where our candidates want to go. First one, we've already mentioned a little bit. Despite the rejection of the Bedrooms Are for People initiative in 2021, Council passed an occupancy increase ordinance this year. Do you favor any amendments to that ordinance to, 1, create an exemption to protect the Hill from increased occupancy, or 2, tie any additional occupancy to affordability? What would be your policy? There was no 3. What would be your policy?
You're going to get 2 more answers.
Yeah, I think so. I'm really disappointed, number one, that got overturned. You know, we voted on that, and I feel like it was, whether or not, wherever you stand on the issue, the vote was taken, and it should have gone back on the ballot in order to settle this democratically. So putting that aside and where we are today, it has gone through. I would like to see an affordability component to that. I feel like it was a very big missed opportunity. The way I would approach this is the same way that we handle ADU variances today, which is we keep our occupancy limits the same, but if you have the opportunity to get a variance to an increased occupancy, but you have to give us in exchange reduced rents. This was a complete giveaway to landlords and owners, and I think that people are fooling themselves if we think we're going to all of a sudden magically see reduced rents. So, we should have absolutely demanded an affordability component to this. So it was a missed opportunity.
It was, and the 3 of us, Mark and Terri and I, voted against it. Let me back up a little bit. Lisa Spalding and I and a few others led the opposition to Bedrooms Are for People. We were that close to getting that defeated, and unfortunately, we did get it defeated, but that close to, I jumped ahead. We did get it defeated, but then we were that close with respect to the people that got elected in that very same election. And there was a group of people in that very same election where we defeated Bedrooms Are for People who promised that they would change occupancy. So I don't know what the voters were thinking of. How did they vote? It's kind of crazy. They always say the people get the governance they deserve. So I guess we got it. And so what Mark and Terri and I tried to do when that came back, when they tried to undo the Bedrooms Are for People defeat, is we tried to get an overlay for areas in proximate to the university, particularly the Hill and Martin Acres. And we were defeated on that on a 3-6 vote. And then we tried to get an affordability component. We got defeated on that, 3-6. We tried 4 people rather than 5 people. We got defeated on every turn, every attempt we made. The one minor success we did have, and this is thanks to Lisa, is we were able to have a modification around the 5 people for non-conforming uses. And this is something that Lisa partnered with us a bit on. So for example, if you had a duplex that's a non-conforming use, which is kind of a legal wonky term, you're not going to have 5 plus 5. You're not going to have 10 people in that place. It's not a big victory. It's a little tiny victory, but it's a little bit of a savings there. And to answer your question, Mark, yes, I think if the right people get elected to council, I think we can roll it back. Unlike a ballot measure, this was just an act of council, and so the next council can come in and make changes. And if you elect these people, well, they can speak for themselves, but if you elect the right people, I think that we can dial this back. Particularly, let's get the right people elected, then let's partner and figure out how we're going to fix this thing.
So I was so upset that night. Now, I could keep my cool, I love everybody, blah, blah, blah. But I was pretty mad that night because we had an actual vote where people voted and said how they feel. And the response was, well, that's not what they meant. What? I was fit to be tied about it. So I'm still mad about it, and I get mad at very little because I'm used, after 2 years. And so I wouldn't mind rolling it back, to be honest. I would not mind another ballot measure or bringing it back because we do not have the infrastructure for 5. We just don't. We don't have the parking. I had to park 2 blocks. First of all, I parked a block away from Aurora and 13th, so now I'm 2 blocks away, but that's a whole nother story, my bad, since I went to the wrong place. But still, I went to a meeting with the people on 11th Street. Are any of you guys here tonight? No? A whole group of people on 11th Street who cannot park their car because of this sorority. And it isn't fair. That's all I have to say. It just isn't fair. And so that's me being mad. I'm still mad, and I think we should do something about it.
We're all right in Bob's face right there. Okay, sorry. I agree with my counterparts back here. I do think that if elected to council, I would look to either put it back on the ballot, have it rolled back, or attach an affordability component to it. And if we talk about this moving forward, I definitely think the areas around the universities need to be taken as a separate issue due to the issues that you all have up here on the Hill. And, in my opinion, I think that residential neighborhoods throughout Boulder need to be protected at all costs. I don't think we should be putting triplexes and duplexes in residential neighborhoods. I think that they need to be protected. So I agree with my counterparts. Thank you.
So a lot has been said, so I'm going to take a little bit of a different angle on this. First, I'll just talk about the state-level legislation and the Land Use Bill 213 that looked at doing a statewide occupancy and the role that Boulder had in that development. So I do think there are some statewide issues that need to be tackled on a regional basis, including air quality, gun violence, reproductive rights. I'm in support of those. But I think there are other land use things that should be done more at a local level. So even though I wasn't on council, I was advocating for, within the land use bill, for carve-outs for university towns, and that was actually something that they considered on the House side of the state legislature. So I just want to bring up there's another issue around occupancy that's not just about Uni Hill, but it even has a statewide level, and that it's going to be important for all of us to be clear about that. I am glad that this is an ordinance and not a ballot measure, and I wouldn't support another ballot measure, actually. I would want changes in ordinances. And I think the key here is to work with CU to really understand what the growth is. There's a commitment by the chancellor, who's now outgoing, for a 1% growth that will be achieved mostly through retention rather than new students for the next 5 years, and that feels hopeful to me. But I think the key is to continue to work with them and understand what the housing needs will be and how they can be accomplished. Also thinking that there's going to be large new student developments happening, including the replacement of the Millennium property, and how will that also create maybe a lack of pressure on this neighborhood, which could be really helpful. So thinking about those relationships between new development and how it might actually help out the Uni Hill development while keeping a tight relationship with CU and whoever the new chancellor is, which is an exciting concept. So thanks.
I'm going to depart from my sheet of questions for a moment. I'm sure you guys have been answering questions about public safety on a daily basis. My question is, you're all elected. What are you going to do? With specifics, not generalities. What are you going to do to enhance public safety in Boulder?
The judge? Okay. We've been doing this a long time. Since I'm back here. We all know what our strengths are. So I have 2 things that I would focus on, and I won't focus on everything, even specifically, just because everyone has really, really important points. My main focuses are the appointment of our municipal judge, which will be coming up with the next council, and municipal court reform. So in my opinion, the city council, not in my opinion, but as process, city council appoints the city attorney, the city manager, and the municipal court judge. Judge Cook retired a couple of months ago, and so we have Judge Conan now, who's her assistant judge. And he's in the interim until the next council comes in, and at that point, we'll be selecting the new judge. That is a very important position to have here in Boulder. There is some disconnect between our municipal courts, our community courts, how people are handled as they come in, if you're a student, if you're a regular citizen, if you're somebody who's unhoused. And so we need some way better structure there inside of our municipal court. We also need to determine ways that we can hold people accountable for their actions in a compassionate way and try to prevent them from getting into our county system. So, you know, they'll have infractions on a municipal level, and then, you know, there's some restorative justice that happens. We'll get rid of your ticket if you go get a license or social security card or something like that. That's not really addressing the root problem of what's happening. And if we can get some mental health services within our municipal court and get people funneled to the right places, not just restorative justice, I think that we can prevent further crime from happening. And all of that can happen within our municipal court, and all of that can happen if we appoint the right judge. Thank you.
Kind of. So, you know, basically, we have to get honest about what's happening with the unsheltered population. Everybody talks about homelessness, but really there are a lot of subgroups within that group. And when we're referring to homelessness, what we're really talking about is unsheltered homelessness. It's the individuals that are in our creek, in our spaces, that are sleeping. That's about 150 people. And it's estimated that 75% of them are suffering from substance abuse disorder, mental health, or both. So this idea that we're going to house them and all of a sudden magically solve this problem is just, it's false thinking. What we desperately need is sober-supported transitional housing so that we can then leverage alternative sentencing to get these folks into treatment and into a safe place and off of our streets. Right now, what happens is when they do get picked up, they go to the jail and they're let go and they go straight back out onto the street. There's nowhere for them to go. So kind of piggybacking on what Jenny's saying is that when these individuals are committing crimes and they're facing the judge, we can set up a structure to say, hey, you know, you can either go to jail or you can go to alternative sentencing and get treatment. And that will really allow us to get these folks, because the criminal justice system is not where they need to be. It's not a suitable place for drug treatment. We need some capacity to be able to handle that. I think that's number one. And number two is we need more of a system around safe indoor shelters. At any given night, we have 10 available spaces in our night shelter. We have another 20 spaces available in our detox facility. So, you know, we have to somehow change our policies to ensure that folks are taking advantage of the space that we do have, and if they're not, understand what we can do to adapt them to make them more suitable, because being in our streets is just not the correct solution. Thanks.
Yeah. So today, after that experience in the underpass, I went and I had a meeting with Bridge House, Melissa. Who knows Melissa? Anybody? What an awesome organization. So they take people from right off the street. You can walk right in and be asked to be trained. You just have to be sober. And the problem is that we don't have enough services, places for people to go to become sober, and also for mental health. So they told me that who knows what Mental Health Partners is? Anybody? That is our provider for mental health. If you are having a schizophrenic breakdown, you actually have to wait 3 months for an appointment. 3 months. Okay. So Melissa said, even if they could solve the problem of homelessness, people have nowhere to go. So I've been trying to work with Mental Health Partners. They say, me and Rachel Friend, we visited 3 times. We had 3 meetings. They say they're understaffed by like 50%. So there's a lot of back-end issues that, for me, my take is like I've been working with Judy Amabile and also Ashley Stolzman to try to get some of our regional partners and state partners to help us with the financial component and to build, you know, psychiatric hospitals, inpatient and outpatient. We just don't have enough drug, to get it, sober living, to get off drugs, facilities. We just don't have enough of it. So it was a little depressing, I'm not going to lie. But what isn't depressing is if we all put our heads together, the whole region, the state, and the city, to try to solve these problems. At the same time, we cannot allow crime to win. We have to, when people commit crimes, they should go to jail, and we have to figure that whole thing out. But let the next person take over from there.
It's really hard going forth with this group. So I'll just echo the piece about the mental health. I think it's one of the biggest gaps we have is getting the right people hired, and there just aren't enough of them. If you're not aware, Colorado ranks last in the country for mental health services. And also from a school district perspective, we have the exact same problem. So it's something that we've never prioritized as a state. And it's something that we need to get on now if we expect better outcomes, even 10 or 20 years from now. Not everything is going to happen in the next 12 months. The other piece I'll just touch on is the Reimagine Policing plan from a public safety place. And what I really appreciate about the plan is the progressive nature of the policing and the preventative focus. So the police will be really looking to prevent crimes and to help people get connected, partnering with behavioral health individuals when they're working with the population that's committing the crimes. And I think it's important for the council to continue to support the police department so that they're successful in this Reimagine Policing plan. Now, so far, that was a unanimous vote by the current council, and every candidate has expressed that they support it. But I think we need to continue to offer our personal support and backing, because being a police officer or a mental health specialist in our community is really hard work. It's taxing, and we just need to be appreciative of all the people who are here helping us live in a community and creating a safer community that we can all enjoy.
Yeah, thanks. You guys cover all of them. I think most of you, many of you, subscribe to my monthly newsletter, which I put out every month since I've been on council over the last 8 years. And last month, in the September issue, I did publish an 8-point plan. I think you just heard it from my colleagues here. So let me just maybe tackle the elephant in the room, or I guess elephant in the sanctuary. And that is, if this was a small, finite group of people, 100 or 200 people, that had been in Boulder for a long time, that had mental health problems or a substance abuse problem, or were just down on their luck and just didn't have housing, this would be such an easy problem to solve. But that's not who we're talking about. Those people, actually, we've helped those people. It's the 4 people per day on average, unhoused people, on average 4 people a day in and day out, 7 days a week, who get off buses from Denver and Longmont and show up here. And they're here for an average of 1.3 months. They steal bikes, they do drugs, they set up tents down in the creek, and then they move on to terrorize the next town. That's our biggest problem, is transients. All the things that you heard are absolute great solutions to homelessness, and we're doing some of those things. We need to do more. Mental health treatment, substance abuse, permanent supportive housing, a day shelter, expanded night shelter. All of those things are great, and we want to continue to do those things. But we're not going to tackle this thing unless we address the transients problem. And that is our biggest challenge right now, is those people who don't want services, they don't want treatment, they don't want care, they don't want housing, they don't want to go to the shelter. They just want to be here and make this an uncomfortable place for the rest of us. I mean, they give homelessness a bad name. I'll be real candid about it. And that's our biggest problem. And we do something called diversion, which is like buying a bus ticket. And I think we need to continue to do that. We need to stop people and say, you know what? You just got off the bus. You're probably heading somewhere. Can we help you get to Portland or Seattle or one of those other places? And believe me, it's a lot cheaper to buy a bus ticket than do some of these other things. And so that needs to be an element. I'm going to be real candid about that. That needs to be an element of our plan, is we need to help people continue on their way.
I think you guys may have done too many of these forums. It's like choreography. Let's come back to the Hill. Staff is working on a persistent nuisance statute to make problem properties and their landlords more accountable for trash, noise, and calls for service to the police. Would you support this ordinance? Why or why not?
feel like a sitting council person should have gone first. No, it's okay. So the noise and trash ordinance? Yeah.
Noise, trash, and it's called persistent nuisance, so that it tends to hold landlords more accountable for the behavior of their tenants.
Yeah, I would need to, just like anything else, I would want to listen to both the landlords and the renters. I think over time, the idea is to first try to mediate and find a way to get to a better place where there's less of a nuisance. And I think there were some activities that have been done, like the registration of parties, that are starting to show some positive effects. But ultimately, if it's persistent, and one of my friends is actually she's a bear trash can advocate, and talked to me a lot about how in this neighborhood in particular, there's a lot of incidents with bear because the trash isn't properly stored with a latched bin. And I think in a case like that, we need to start holding the landlord accountable so that we can get the outcomes that we're looking for. So that's one example where I think that makes sense, and also for the other behaviors. But, we want to try and keep it a positive relationship first for everyone, but ultimately, I would, after time, go to the landlord.
Now, I want to talk about the bear situation. I don't know about you, but these bears are pretty smart. I have a latch, and the bear came and went wham just a few days ago, and I had to clean. Pardon me? The bear knows that the situation with my garbage, they figured out how to open it, but they don't like coffee grinds, so there's coffee grinds all over. But that's a story. Don't count that. Start from the. Okay. That was a good story, but I think that there's a small amount of landlords that are not good. Many landlords really care and try to do good, and then there are some landlords that don't care. For instance, I was standing in front of a friend's house, who knows Tamar, on 10th Street, anyone? Okay. And right behind her is this party with really loud music. The landlord was standing there doing nothing. And we're like, hello, landlord. Tell the person, if you want me to do it, I'll do it. You know I will, people. So I feel like we do have to hold landlords responsible when they can do something. The landlords have it tough right now because it's harder to evict people that are bad tenants. And so it's not, do you hold landlords responsible for bad tenants? Yes and no. The kids have to grow up and behave, and also there has to be something for tenants to be able to, landlords can't be in charge of everybody's behavior, but I still think that we can do more to get the landlords that aren't behaving to behave. Does that make sense? That's all I have to say.
Who here has served on, is serving or has served on the University Hill Working Group? I know a handful of you. Mark has, a few have you. So thanks to partnership between the city and the University Hill Working Group, we did pass a noise ordinance about a year ago, which was quite an enhancement and quite an improvement from where we were before. And I understand from some of you that live on the Hill that it's gotten a little bit better. But that's not enough. And so Mark was alluding to an enhancement to that, which is persistence. Now that we've kind of changed the rules of enforcement, the question is, well, what happens if you get a second, a third, a fourth, a 12th, a 15th violation? Should there be consequences? And I absolutely believe there should be consequences. Now, the landlords say, hey, listen, I didn't make the noise. I live in Louisville. But you know what? As between the city and the landlord, who has the relationship with the students? The landlord does, of course. And we have a tremendous amount of leverage over that landlord because we issue rental licenses. We're actually one of the few cities in the United States that issue licenses for rentals. And so we have this tremendous power over these landlords to say, you know what, if there's X number of violations, I don't know what the number should be, and they don't stop in a certain period of time, guess what? Your rental license goes away. That's a huge impact to that landlord because he still has to pay his taxes, but suddenly he's lost his rental license and the students are out on the street. So the students suffer the consequences, the landlord suffers the consequences, and your lives are a little bit more peaceful. I never ever want to do that. But I would like to threaten to do that because we know that you all know the landlords that are causing some of the biggest problems, and they rent to this. They don't care who the students are, and they're not supervising their students. Now, is that their job? I don't know if that's their job, but it's certainly not the job of the city or the police to supervise them. And so if they're the landlord and they're renting to students, they better put something in their lease that says, you know what, if you've got a certain number of violations, you're out of here. And the landlord, we have consequences against the landlord for failing to do that. And I feel very strongly about that. And I look forward on the next council, in partnership with Mark.
Any changes to the ordinance to stop some of the nuisance and the things that you guys have going on in some of the rentals up here? We visited a sorority earlier this week, Kappa Alpha Theta, and they were telling us, the seniors that we were talking to were telling us how 4-Star was their rental company, and they were like, we can't get anything fixed, the place is kind of trashed, like, and they're just not listening to us. My cousin is in a fraternity here, and he came, he's a sophomore, so he came to live in the house this fall, and he rolled in there with my aunt, and I mean, she was like, it was completely trashed, hadn't been cleaned at all. Again, large Greek landlord is, having issues up here. So I think that especially the large landlords that have multiple rental properties like 4-Star and the Greeks, they need to be held accountable to more than just nuisance. Because if you have fresh adults and, you got a lot of these 18-year-olds, my kids are 11 and 13, and based on what I've seen up here, I'm already teaching them how to move into a place by themselves. Like, you don't break glass or leave trash in your yard. I mean, even door knocking up here, we see all the alcohol and the broken glass and the empties around, and that to me is just unacceptable. So we definitely need ordinance changes. We need to work with the larger landlords and the smaller landlords, but in particular, first, the larger landlords, to make sure that they have proper rentals so people feel positive about where they live and they're more willing to keep things clean. And that's what I would do. Thank you.
So Jenny and I were door knocking this week on the Hill, and we learned some pretty fascinating things. A number of people told us that landlords, to get around the occupancy limits, will issue multiple leases in the same building so that 9 people can live there legally, which is ridiculous. And so to me, I'm a landlord. I own a rental that rents to students. I've never had any problems, never any nuisance problems. My guess is the same buildings that are having the nuisance problems are the same landlords that are cheating the system and not following the rules. So I 100% think that we should be making sure that those folks are being held accountable. And I do think there's an enforcement element to all of this, which is, I know the city is very understaffed in terms of enforcing the rental rules and regulations, and maybe it's a matter of the city needs to invest a little bit more in enforcement and get ahead of that and really try to surface these landlords that are taking advantage of the system and abusing our policies so we can head off some of these nuisance problems before they start. Thanks.
Thank you all. One more for the Hill. Several establishments in the business district of the Hill who have liquor licenses have asked council to extend their hours of operation from 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. in the morning. What do you think about it?
That's a terrible idea. An absolutely terrible idea. Why? I have no idea why we would want to encourage more late night drinking, but to me that just seems like, if they really need to go get alcohol, I'm sure they can find it somewhere else in the city of Boulder, but we do not need to encourage it on the Hill. So.
I agree that that's a terrible idea. I went to school at Marquis in Milwaukee. Very interesting city to go to college in. It was a Jesuit university in a town where in their charter in Milwaukee, we didn't have sororities because it was written that any household that had more than 5 women was considered a brothel. So, and nobody is changing that. It's still there, so no sororities. In addition, they didn't sell alcohol on Sundays. All the liquor stores closed at 9 p.m. So we had to learn, when I went to college, how to manage alcohol, in a way that was responsible, and we figured it out. So there is no reason to have to keep any bars or restaurants open until 2 a.m. So, thank you.
I went to we're celebrating, of course, the 100th anniversary of the sink. This seems like a year-long celebration. And I was at a presentation yesterday by Chris Heinrichs. I know none of you know Chris. And he was talking about the history of the sink. And he goes, in the 1990s, 60% of our revenue came after 10 p.m. He goes, now we're closed at 10 p.m. And they're doing just fine. They're doing, as a matter of fact, my wife and I are going to go to the sink after this because I love their burgers there. And so I think this is going to be an interesting discussion. We thought we were going to have it last night, and as Lisa observed, it got postponed. There's going to be a public hearing sometime. I don't know if it's going to happen with this council or the next council about what the appropriate closing times for bars on the Hill are. And I would encourage you all, if you've got, I assume you have some strong feelings about this, to write to council, to sit down, talk to council. You can hear what these people's views are, so that's probably a head start on that. And let's figure out what the answer is. The answer may be to preserve what we have right now. The answer may be something different. I don't know what it is. There's also some food ratio requirements, which quite frankly I don't even understand right now. This actually kind of came out of the blue. I don't know where this came from because I think we've had a kind of a steady state for the last several years, and suddenly this has kind of popped up. And so I think this is going to be a discussion. I'm not sure that this council is going to tackle it, and I think the next one will. So listen carefully to what my colleagues say about this, and then let's, if it is the next council, let's roll up our sleeves and figure out what to do. I still think there's probably going to be a number of people on. Remember, the council terms are staggered, and so there's a number of people that are on this council that will automatically be on the next council, and I think a few of them are probably pretty in favor of late hours. So we're going to have an interesting discussion, I'll just say that, over the next few weeks or months on this.
Yeah, I followed this a little bit on the city council meeting, and I do think it's important to get engaged in this discussion. And for me on the city council is first trying to understand where the current council lands and what our options are, because it may be that it's not black and white and that we can find a different solution so it makes some of the businesses feel okay. But I would raise a challenge to all the businesses, and maybe this is something we could trade, is whether the restaurants and bars on the Hill would commit to a very strict program of not allowing fake IDs for the purchase of alcohol. So one of the issues I've seen as a parent in Boulder High is that businesses are still accepting fake IDs for underage students, whether they're in the high schools or in the colleges. And I think that I would appreciate a better partnership where there are ways to do more strict checks, and I would support that definitely with that initiative, and that might actually help also with the amount of activity and illegal drinking that's happening.
The Hill Commercial District is not doing great. So if we're committed to a Hill Commercial District, why do I keep forgetting? If we're committed to a Hill Commercial District, we have to work with the businesses, or we shouldn't have a Hill Commercial District. So you've seen me over the past 2 years, go to meetings with different people and say, what can we do to make this a better place? One of the problems is there shouldn't be in front of businesses people lying down in front of the doors with their dogs. It's just not right. It's not fair to the businesses that we let this happen. So one thing I would like to do is somehow, and I'm not sure how, but somehow figure that out so that businesses can be more successful. I have always been a compromiser, right? By that I mean you guys want the Hill Commercial District to be successful, and they want it to be successful. So I am confident that we can work it out, like for instance, removing that 50-50 thingy, and if you don't know what it is, what is it again, 50, you know it?
Yeah, it's the relative percentages of revenue that are derived from food versus beverage.
Right. So that 50-50 thing apparently is nowhere else in the state of Colorado. It puts an undue burden. Is that not true? Because that's what they tell us. So they're not telling the truth? What a surprise.
Yeah. No, I mean, it is done frequently, particularly in higher-end retail properties where they don't want to have a student bar. They want to ensure that the tenant is actually getting customers that sit down to eat. It's not unusual. I used to be very active in the restaurant business as a lawyer. It's not uncommon at all.
This is what we do on city council, by the way. So either way, we have to sit down with our businesses, because they're our local businesses, and figure out how they can succeed, what we can do to help them, but also keep the safety on the Hill and not allow, it can't go till 2 o'clock, without a doubt. It's crazy. But also we'll have, 30 seconds? We're going to have that Hill Hotel, which I know some of you are not excited about. But the reason why I am happy about it is because I feel like it could turn around the problems in the commercial district and make it nicer, prettier, more elegant. I mean, bring back a real vibrant commercial district is my most important thing, because I'd like to go to the Hill, to be honest. And right now, I'm a little scared at night. And that's the way I feel about that. What?
I think we're at about 7 o'clock, and so I wanted to see if there are any questions that we want to have from the audience. Do you have cards, Lisa?
Thank you, Mark. Can you hear me? One question that really hasn't been addressed yet is the city's budget for code enforcement. And if you go through the BRC, it's just loaded with really nice-looking ordinances, and that if they were, if there was code enforcement adequate attached to those, we wouldn't be having anywhere nearly the problems that we're having now. And one of the biggest complaints that I hear from everybody I know is how completely inadequate code enforcement is in the city of Boulder. And so I would like to know what the candidates feel about the prospects of really, really upping code enforcement. Because one of the problems now is that when you need code enforcement, you end up having to call the police, partly because of the timing. If something is happening at night and you try to call any kind of code enforcement, it just doesn't happen. You end up calling the police. The police don't want to deal with it. They don't know how to deal with it, and so forth. So that's the question.
So I will say, and current city council can keep me honest on that, I do think that we need to look at increasing our budget for code enforcement. I have been told that we have 2 active code enforcement people right now, which isn't nearly enough for 40,000 residences here in Boulder. When we were on our walk the other day doing the door knocking, we were told that there are people who, they're like, there's carpenters going in and out of these houses every day that are building like almost cubbies for beds so they can, charge to get people in. They've got living rooms and detached garages and things like that. And that's, again, not acceptable. People are not permitting, and we do not have anybody for code enforcement. So in my opinion, we need to look at increasing the budget for that department, increasing the people who are in that department in order to make sure that we have regular visits, especially in areas like the Hill, where we have renters, Martin Acre, Fraser, in order to make sure that the residents who are up here living are not being taken advantage of by the renters that live in the neighborhood and the landlords. Okay, everybody agrees.
I have a question regarding ADUs. Because we live on the Hill, nobody wants more students. I'm totally a part of that. A lot of the landlords have gone and gotten a bunch of ADUs, and they stuff like 1 billion students in there. Well, I don't want that. But then the rest of our residents who want to build something for our elderly parents to come and live with us, Boulder doesn't allow it because ADUs are maxed out on the Hill, and I can't put a shower in for my mother to shower.
I got it. I got the question. I'll
Please
take
solve.
this one. Yeah. So let me just back up and we'll kind of define our terms. ADU, for those of you who don't know, is an accessory dwelling unit. And we reformed our rules on accessory dwelling units in 2018, and then we further reformed them just a few months ago. So you were referring to the saturation limit that was eliminated. Yeah. You're welcome. And thank you. Thank you. So since we reformed the ADU rules about 5 years ago, there's been about 220, 250 new accessory dwelling units citywide. So it's not, it hasn't been a land rush or anything like that, but there's been a few. About half of those are actually not even used for rentals. A lot of people just use them as like offices or man caves or whatever in the backyard. And a lot of them are in the house and some of them are external. One of the things that we, and about half of them are rented. One of the rules about ADUs is the owner must live on the property, right? You can't just have turn one house into two houses and now have twice as many students there. So the owner must be on the property, okay? And the accessory dwelling unit can either be an office, or if you want to rent it, you can get a rental license, but it's subject to all the same rules, the maximum occupancy, you have to have a rental license, all the same rules. And she was referring to what's called a saturation limit, which there was a limit at how many ADUs you could have on a block, effectively. And if your neighbors beat you to the punch, then you kind of got locked out. And a lot of people like to use ADUs for parents who are aging in place, or for boomerang children that don't quite lunch. And so but we eliminated just a few months ago, the saturation limit. So anybody who wants to can apply to put an ADU either within their house or in their backyard. And then they can use it for an office, they can use it for a parent, they can rent it out, subject to all of our usual rental rules. And I think they're naturally good things. And one of my colleagues mentioned also we have some affordability limits on that as well. As a matter of fact, it's one of the few rental things where we do have affordability limits. I wish we had it on everything else, but that's a discussion for a different day. I think we're doing one candidate per audience question, so that was mine.
The Hill is characterized by a lot of pressure from developers and investment companies to purchase properties and convert them into student rentals. Anything you'd care to do about that? Yeah.
So I think that, I don't know how many of you heard a conversation that was taped and it's online between 5 college towns, of which Boulder is one of them, talking with their city managers, discussing the different strategies they're having, dealing with the pressure of student housing and the intersection with rental companies and large investment companies. And one of the examples was Chapel Hill, where they're now the city is trying to buy land before investment companies because they're worried about the incredible impact of these businesses in their communities that are not locally run and managed in connection. So that discussion, which I really recommend anyone watch, made me think a lot about housing and what it's here for. Is housing a business, or is housing a place for people to live? We've just seen our own community switch to 53% renters. That's the first time it's above 50%. And, I'm not going to dwell on sort of this character idea, but we don't want just an all transitional community, and we also don't want to make housing primarily here for profit. It's here for people to live. So if you saw a headline the other day, even Jared Polis made a comment that he's wondering whether short-term rentals should be now subject to a property tax that's equivalent to that of a business rather than that of an owner. And so those are some of the lenses that I'm looking at this conversation in terms of what do we do as a community to address these issues. So those are the ideas I'm looking at, and it's interesting to see it happening at the highest level at the state. And you also have people talking about what are disincentives for large investment companies coming into our community and becoming a major landlord, and what power do we have in that really perverse and unbalanced relationship. So I'd like to work on those issues, sort of in the favor of homeowners. Thanks.
We don't.
Sweep in a lot. But where I think we are also, what you're seeing is a lot of infill of market rate housing that is not affordable. And so the individuals that are making more than 60 but are less than 100 are not able to afford rent either. And so we keep building a lot of these higher end apartments or higher end townhomes that aren't really affordable or attainable to the folks that aren't able to qualify for affordable housing, but they can't actually achieve any affordability in this attainable housing. So that, I think that's the area, and she alluded to it, which is sort of this middle income where we've really failed. You know, we talk a lot about, there's supposedly somewhere between 30 and 50,000 people that in-commute every day to work here. Post-pandemic, I don't know what that number is, but it's somewhere in there. And the issue is that I don't think that we've done a meaningful assessment to really understand what they would need to be housed here and make sure that we are building housing that's at the right size and the right price point for the individuals that we're trying to house. Instead, we're building higher end stuff that's ultimately housing an entirely different group of people that is bringing more traffic and things into the city. So I think we have to get a lot more prescriptive about who we're building for and make sure that we've got the right variety of housing, because right now what you're seeing on 30th is a lot of it is what they call efficiency units. So it's a one studio apartment, one bedroom. Yeah. Yeah, she should get on the website. Yeah. Very few. She should get on the website. Affordable studio rent.
Let's define our terms, because we're throwing around the word affordable, and that means something to yeah. I don't know what her daughter makes, but we don't have to get into her daughter's situation. So there's a federal definition of affordable housing, okay? And that's not what some of you may think of as affordable, because everyone has a different income level. At the federal level, if you make less than 60% of the area median income, you qualify for what's called low-income permanently affordable housing. And your rent is based upon your income on a sliding scale. The less you make, the less your rent is. So if you make less, you pay less. If you earn more than 60% of the area median income, you don't qualify, because these are federal programs. And the federal government determines what the cutoff is, and that's the cutoff. We were talking about we build this and we build that. The city doesn't build any housing. Zero. The city builds no housing. The city has no housing. The city does not construct housing. The housing you see constructed are constructed by private companies who build what they want to build, which is allowed within the zoning district. Now, what we do have is something called inclusionary housing, which requires the builder of housing, they can build whatever they want. They can charge whatever they want. We can't limit that. My job is not to tell you what you want to hear. My job is to tell you the truth. And that may not be what you want to hear, but I'm going to tell you the truth. They can build what they want to build. They can build a $2 or $3 or $10 million apartment. It doesn't matter. We can't stop them from doing that. But what we can do is we can tax them. We have the power of taxation. And we have something called inclusionary housing, which means that 25% of all the units they build, whether it's 1 unit or 400 units, 25% of that has to be dedicated to low-income affordable housing. And they either do that by building on site. So, for example, they build 100 units, 25 of them have to be low-income affordable, or they have to write us a big fat check, and then we take that money and we give it to Mark. And the reason why we give it to Mark is because he's on the board of Boulder Housing Partners, and they build 25 units, actually they build more than 25 units, of this low-income housing. It is the most progressive inclusionary housing program in the country. So we do more of this than just about any other city in the country. Now, is that enough? No, it's not enough in Boulder, Colorado. It's very expensive in Boulder, Colorado. Why? Because we have the blue line, because we have the 55-foot height limit, because we surrounded ourselves with 46,000 acres of open space. And all of those cause the land to be very, very horribly expensive. And unless you want to get rid of open space and the blue line and the height limit, it's going to continue to be expensive. But what we can do is make it affordable for low-income families. The middle income is a little tougher. I know you're getting winding up for a rebuttal on that. But what we're trying to do is trying to make it affordable for middle-income families. That's quite a bit more challenging because of that federal limit at 60%. Yeah. Well, the federal definition of affordability is 60% of area median income. It depends on your family size. It's roughly $60,000. I mean, if your family size is 4, obviously the number is higher than if you were a single person. So 60% of the area median income for one person is a bit lower than 60% of the area median for 4 people. But roughly in Boulder County, just take that 60%, multiply times 100,000. It's about 60,000, give or take about 10,000. And if your daughter makes less than that, as has been encouraged, I'd encourage her to apply for that affordable housing through Boulder Housing Partners. She can go right online, and she'll have to get in line because we have more demand than we have availability, but she should get in queue as quickly as she can if she qualifies.
Just to put a gloss on that, Boulder Housing Partners is the largest residential landlord in Boulder, and it's strictly affordable housing. They've got over 1,500 units, and they've got just shy of 800 units in the pipeline. So we take that money from landlords, and we build a lot of affordable housing. But they can't build middle-income housing. And the reason is there are no federal programs that subsidize middle-income housing. So if you make $75,000 a year and you're an individual, you can't benefit. We do not have anybody building housing for a couple that together makes $95,000 a year. Why? Well, this is probably not the appropriate. I'll talk to you afterwards. This is not the time for a lesson in development economics, but I can.
I'll give you a 3-word answer: rent control prohibited. The state of Colorado, rent control is prohibited. We cannot cap rent. Full stop. You may not like that, but that's the existence. What would you do? You're on city council. What law are you going to pass?
Well, on our block, they're all owned by people in California. And, one time we said that has to be managed by someone who lives in Boulder. But it seems like to get a license, there could be some restriction on ownership or managing property. I get it, they're telling me 4-star.
Yeah, unfortunately, we have this pesky little thing called the United States Constitution. And that does limit things like who can own property or who can be in property. We also have federal. We have a rental license. We have a rental license. Yeah, we rental license requirements. We have to apply them uniformly. We can't say, you know what, you will give a rental license to, but you, I don't like you so much, so you're not going to get one. Yeah. So that's you can't discriminate against people from California. You can't discriminate against people. I'd like to. Yeah. Yeah. We continue to look for those things.
Is it possible to use the land use code to limit the number of rentals in an area?
I think the answer is yes. Some cities have. So the question was, just for the recording, is can we limit the number of rental licenses? Either in a neighborhood or maybe citywide. I think that some cities have done that. Mark, are you familiar? Have some cities capped rental licenses?
I think that's been done.
Yeah. As Tina mentioned, we're now about 50% of the dwelling units in the city are rentals. Some are houses and some are apartment buildings and so on and so forth. It's not a topic that's come up, but it's an interesting discussion to have. And I think that some cities have limited rental licenses. And so while we can't discriminate against people, we might be able to just do an overall cap. So I think that's a good discussion to have.
How are we doing on time?
I was pretty amazed to hear this question asked about limiting the number of rentals or like per block, because some 20 years ago I attended a candidate forum here and that question was asked, and it just seems like a pretty simple tool. And I just want you to know I really enjoyed distributing pamphlets in my neighborhood last weekend. I felt overwhelmed, but I also felt a feeling, I love my neighborhood, but I also felt kind of devastated by the change, by the fact that so much of it has converted to rental, which does equal, I mean, I know things have to change, nothing's set in stone, but it seems like we have the ability to affect that change. I don't know. So it's like I'm glad I have a community here. And thank you so much.
I'll turn turn over the microphone, but interesting juxtaposition of the last two sets of questions, right? Because one is, can we make things more affordable, and the other is, can we limit and stop renting properties? What do you think would happen to the price of rentals in the rental market in Boulder, Colorado, if we capped rentals? And so, there's a little bit of a balance there. If we limited rentals, then the prices are going to go up, and then we're going to make the town a little bit less affordable. I understand your issues with students, but we got to kind of maybe think about that balance.
That's a good answer.
All right, we only have a few minutes left. Why don't you guys each just give us a minute? Tell us something about you that we don't know, or that you want us to know, or just give us the quick answer. Why Bob Yates for mayor? Why Terri Brncic? Why Jenny Robbins? Tina? Tara? This is your elevator pitch.
Oh, elevator pitch.
1 minute.
Oh, gosh.
Why you?
Well, why me? Well, I think, I talked about my background a little bit and being a volunteer. I think that those are really important things. I really find, deep joy in helping others, and so I think that this is something that I would really excel at, also given my professional background. Something you don't know about me, I have a golden retriever who is 90 pounds. He is a great dog. My daughter has a chinchilla. We also love pets in our house. We have lots of alive things that they can't take care of. That chinchilla will live 30 years, so when my kids go to college, I will take care of it until they have children. And one of the things that I did while I was in my volunteer, and the woman, Linda, who ran Horses Make Miracles, she did a letter to the editor for me, so you'll see that in the Daily Camera. I take care of horses for therapy, horses for people with PTSD and developmental disabilities, and that is one of the joys of my life, is to take care of those horses and the people who ride them. So thank you very much, everybody, for coming in. Do it for Mark. This is a thing we have. Do it for Mark. Do it for Mark. Do it for Mark. We want him to make sure he has support on the next council. And we also have literature and yard signs. We would love yard signs up here on the hill if you have the ability to take some. Okay, who wants to go next?
Hi. Thank you so much for having us. This was a great venue. I just wanted to touch on one extra thing, which was talking about the historic nature of University Hill. I think it's a priority, if elected to council, just to support efforts where we value the history and the historical nature of the neighborhood, and helping connect the larger Boulder to the neighborhood, including things like, understanding the cemetery, supporting the Ghost Walk. The other piece, I'm just passionate about Boulder. I've been here for 21 years. I care a lot about the city. I also care a lot about the intersection of the outcomes of the city and state legislation. So I'm just going to put in an extra plug that we have a lot of elections coming up beyond the city council election. So you're going to have some choices for your state House of Representatives and your Senate State House. Those are going to be on a June ballot. That's a primary ballot. And then, of course, you're going to have caucusing prior to that. So stay engaged and look at the issues that the state is looking at that will directly affect Boulder, and understand how you want to be represented there. Again, thanks so much for having us. The Hill's such an important asset, and this was a great opportunity.
I want to talk about yard signs for a second. As you guys are leaving, I'm in sales, that's my real field. So why are yard signs important? Because people come up to me and they say, oh, I see your name all over. A lot of voters do not spend a lot of time thinking about the ballot. If it's a pretty sign, they'll be like, oh, let's vote for the library because it's a pretty sign. So that's why, and I'm not going to say how I feel about the library. You can ask me later. I wasn't into it, I'm going to say. But that's why for us all, yard signs are important. So if you don't mind, the last few weeks of taking our yard signs and putting them up, that would really be helpful if you like us, which I hope you do. I want to end with giving you my phone number. 707. Nope. 609. Everybody who knows me knows that you can call me up and talk with me about anything. I remember one person was so outraged at one of my votes, she said she's never talking to me again. Why? Because I was trying to get the council to compromise at 4 because I knew that they were going to push for 5. I knew we were going to lose that vote. So I was begging them, just do 4, just do 4. And the person said, how could you do this? You you said you were going to stand for us and you are pushing for it. And I said, no, you don't understand. It's going to 5. I know it is. So I'm trying to hold it back at 4. I managed to explain to the person that the only person that agrees with you 100% is yourself. That's it. I mean, it's really hard to balance. I'm not stopping. This is my end. Stop. It's just so you know, you're never going to be 100% with anybody's votes, but I truly care about each one of you. I do. And this is my phone number. Stop it. 609-707-8385. And you can really call me about anything. If you're aggravated, you're outraged, you're happy, whatever it is, I'm your psychiatrist. No, just kidding.
6-3 composition on our city council. And 2 of those positions are, basically we need to get 4 out of the 5 of us elected in order to change the composition of our city council. So I know normally it's sometimes nice to have a menu of candidates that you're looking at and you pick a few from this side and pick a few from this side. This election's really important, and it's important if you want to see the changes that we've talked about tonight, that you kind of think of us as a package deal. And allow us to get the influence that we need on the council to make some changes. As far as me, I'm described by most of my friends and certainly my husband as a bulldog. I am a tenacious person. I am a problem solver. This campaign has been very difficult for me because I am not capable of fluff. I am very much a concrete, I don't have the soft skills to be able to give all the buzzwords. But what I commit to you is that I am the type of person that when I identify a problem, I go into solutions mode and I just try to, take steps. That adage about how do you eat an elephant, one bite at a time. That's kind of how I'm looking at some of the big challenges that we're facing here in Boulder, particularly around homelessness. We can't get overwhelmed with the bigness of it. We need to break it down and start putting one foot in front of the other and really trying to drive towards a solution. Thanks.
This election is both about quantity and about quality. You heard a lot of discussion about the numbers. It's a 9-member council, and obviously if we can get 5 or 6 people on council, then we're heading in a different direction than we have the last 2 years. But I think it's also an election about quality. And for the very first time, you're going to have the opportunity to directly elect your mayor, and I hope you choose wisely. There's 4 people running for mayor. There's only one person you can pick, and I don't know who that should be. I'd urge you to look at the other candidates for mayor and look at me. And the mayor is the person who's going to represent this community externally, and lead the meetings, of course, but also represent us. And I think you have to ask yourself, who do you want to be the leader of this community? Who will you be proud to have represent you to the county, to the state, to the federal government, and just about town. And I do think that leadership matters. I've got a lot of years of leadership, both in the business arena as a lawyer and a corporate executive, and then I got involved in nonprofits after I retired and created the new Museum of Boulder and a bunch of other things. They're all on my website. And then I've been in government now for 8 years. So I got business, and I got nonprofit, and I got government work. And I've learned as a leader over those 40 years what works and what doesn't. And so I hope that as you choose your council candidates and you vote the next couple of days, you pick the 4 women that are behind me, because I've been involved in Boulder politics for a long, long time. This is the best collection of people I have ever seen. I swear to God. This is a really... So please, nothing will suck more than being elected as mayor and then not having these people behind me. It'll just be me and Mark on council. So do it for Mark. And if you do elect us as your next council, and if you have any problems whatsoever, call Terra. 609-707-8385.
All right. Can I make a quick statement? Yes, I do. My turn. I want to reiterate what Bob just said. I think this is the strongest slate of candidates, or group of candidates, however you want to look at it, that I have seen. I've only been on council for 4 years, but I've not seen anything quite like this. And I really urge you to vote for each and every one of them. I think they are all super high quality. I think Bob will make an extraordinary mayor, and I think each one of them will be a high contributing member of the council. But I want to leave you with an ask, okay? Much of Boulder has not engaged with this election. In fact, many people in Boulder don't engage until the last couple of days or the last couple of weeks, and they turn around and say to their neighbor, well, who are you voting for? So my ask of you is that if you agree with me that these are the candidates you want to support, you've got to tell other people. You've got to get on the horn and proselytize and make sure other people know that these are the good candidates. That it's not just about who advertised in the Daily Camera today or who was endorsed by the Daily Camera today. That these are the candidates. And if each one of you does that for another 10, that's a major contributing factor to this election. And if they each did another 10, we'd be home free. So you have shown your engagement by being here, taking your time out of a busy Friday evening to attend this. I'm asking you to go a little further and talk to people and spread the word, because this has the makings of an extraordinarily good council that I want to serve on and would be honored to serve on. So please do that. And thank you for your time. Thank you to the candidates. A round of applause to the candidates.
I think Nancy has something to say.
Take a sign.
Yep. I just wanted to thank everybody for coming. This is a great turnout. We're very excited. Thank you, candidates,
Thank you.
for coming on a busy Friday night. This has been extraordinary, and we are just very, very excited about this slate of candidates. I personally think that they are the best. And I also wanted to put in a little plug for Ghost Walk, Ghost Talk, because
Here's the commercial.
here's the commercial. Bob mentioned it. It's tomorrow. Tomorrow, and so go on the Historic Boulder website and order your tickets, and it should be great fun. It should be really just a blast. Psychics from Psychic Horizons is going to be there at each of the different places, and it's focused on downtown. So thank you, and we appreciate all of you. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Oh, and thank you, and thank you, Mark.
Are you the AV guy?
Thank you, Mark. Thank you so much.
Would you like to speak to that camera?
so, too.
I had to replace a battery, and I didn't get your 1 minute, like, why you should go. Just take this.
The beginning or the end?
Who are we playing tomorrow?
Nobody.
Oh, yes.
It's going to be a successful outcome.
It's going to be successful
Oh,
outcome.
yeah.
Oh, that one.
That
Oh, Lisa and Mark. Yeah. I just showed up. No, I did some background